World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
L-ewwel ħaġa bħala Gaming Malta l-esports huwa settur importanti ħafna għalina. Meta nħarsu lejn gaming ma nitkellmux biss fuq l-online gaming, imma il-video gaming u anki l-esports. L-esports huwa settur li internazzjonalment qed jikber ħafna u Malta għandha rol importanti wkoll x'tilab f'dan is-settur. Coming back to home, il-World Pro Racing hija kumpanija li ditt mill-Maltin u qed tagħmel suċċess internazzjonali. Ġifieri Malta għalija hija pedina għall-ambizzjonijiet tagħhom fuq pjan internazzjonali.
L-ewwel rrid insir Formula 1 driver u ngħaddi lil Lewis Hamilton bir-rekord tiegħu. U mbagħad wara rrid insir engineer.
Mela, t-tifel huwa professional driver diġà tal-go-karts, tella barra minn Malta nkajsu u training u hekk allura bejn telliqa oħra meta ma jkunux jistgħu jiċċessaw it-trek huwa tajjeb li jiġi hawnhekk jitrejnja hija simulator bħal go-kart qiegħed isuq ġol l-istess trakka li jsuqgħu Malta allura jkun qiegħed training minflok qiegħed ġa trakka stess. Għandu l-coach tiegħu tas-CRG stess, jgħalmu jagħtu ħtiebs barra minn Malta l-istess ħaġa jkallmuhom kif iduru mal-kantunieri, race line, il-ħinijiet x'in jafsu l-gass, il-break. Hija teknika ħafna l-ħaġa, ġifieri kapaċi ħafna iktar minn it-tifel. Huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga. Meta jmorru ġa trakku ma stess jgħidulek aħna nħossuna żvogajna flaxej jħossuhom tranquilli għax ineħħu l-istress tal-ġurnata, l-istress tal-iskola, kollox. Plus li huwa sport sabiħ għalihom li jitrejnjaw. It-tifel trabba ġol karozzi, allura għalih hija passjoni. Dan iċ-ċentru għalih huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga jkunu. Għal dawk il-parents forsi li jibżaw jgħidulek għax it-tifel huwa perikolus. Hawnhekk m'hawnx periklu. Qegħdin protetti, ġobini, it-tfal jaraw x'iridu. Jekk ma jibdewx issa minn ta' żgħira xorta jibdew meta jkunu kbar, insomma jteżwelithom l-opportunitajiet kollha li tkun tista' tihom meta jkunu żgħar.
Jien ma' World Pro Racing naħdem bħala replay person u nsuq mat-tim ukoll. Main task jien normalment nagħmel nieħu ħsieb li l-computers kollha din jaħdmu, nieħu ħsieb li l-komunità għandna platform online li kollox qed immur sew anke nikkomunikaw ma' drivers u wara l-events nikteb l-artikli nippubblikawhom fuq il-website. Jien as such bdejt bħal kull student naqa' technical know-hows, imbagħad ovvjament through time bdejt nitgħallem kif ċertu pereżempju broadcasts, ċertu affarijiet, ċertu preparations li jsiru qabel. Dik regarding World Pro Racing, anke bħala sim racing, bdejt jien bħala e-sport jiġifieri aktar fuq computer, mbagħad bdejt bil-mod nibni bħala steerings u hekk tracks tibda bil-mod kollox pass pass issa.
Office without limits. Slash your telco costs. Boost agent productivity and customer service. Web conferencing for all. Never miss a call. .3CX, everywhere you go, on premise or in the cloud. 3cx.com.
ħalsulhom il-fuel. Ara ġej.
Wara ftit ġranet kellna rebbieħ ieħor fil-logħba tagħna kontra 30 sekonda bil-maqlub. Suqu fuq ir-riserva xejdu le mhix se tieqaf.
Il-ġimgħa d-dieħla nkunu fuq pompa tal-Enemed oħra nagħtu xi ħaġa oħra.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You're risking not only your life, but also my life.
Okay, we proceed to the start.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
Second half of the season now. Botniaring, a very challenging track, and of course, these guys are eager to go fighting again. Kai, how are you today?
I am doing amazing. I'm looking forward to some brilliant racing, and I think the action produced today, it's going to be on the top level. Obviously, we're racing at the Botniaring. We're racing on the short layout, 2.6 kilometers off circuit, 9 corners, and a lot of overtaking zones.
Absolutely. Of course, a shorter layout, so a lot of difficulty as well, you know, a lot of laps, so very, very difficult, of course, to, always gauge when to make the right moves and all that. But, yeah, we are now experienced with short circuits, had the smaller Mills Metro Park layout, we had the very, very short Lime Rock Park, and we had incredible racing there. So do you think we're going to have an incredible show today again?
I think it's going to be interesting how the drivers tackle the challenge of it being such a short circuit and how they take it on board. I think making the most of every opportunity is going to be crucial for these drivers on making their way through the pack and actually defending their position at the front if they find themselves in that position.
Absolutely. And much like all the drivers have to make the most out of everything, we also have to make the most out of everything, and we couldn't do that without our partners, of course, with Enemed, Gaming Malta, the Malta Motorsport Federation, 3CX, Vibe FM, and of course our broadcasting partners ESTV, Motorsport TV, and TVM Sport. So, just a couple more minutes, we're also going to be joined by a special guest in a moment. And now we can actually go to that special guest over there once again at our studio at the World Pro Racing Center in Malta.
Hello, Nico and Kai. Thank you for your introduction. Today is round 5 of the Malta National GT Championships. And with me here, I have Edwin Saliba, who by all means does not need an introduction for those into motorsports. And obviously, Simon, who's with us every week commenting and doing some reviews also about these races. Simon, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm
Great.
looking forward to the race today.
And Edwin, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. As you right say, well, in Malta, some people know me here in Malta. Obviously, those abroad, they don't know me. I'm a car mechanic, so on technical stuff of cars, I'm pretty sure I can give you my whole idea on technical stuff. While racing, during racing, practice sessions, qualifying, I'm sure it's going to be an exciting race. Those guys out there racing hard, some of the fastest gamers we have in Malta. So it's going to be challenging. It's going to be a great race for us.
Without a doubt. Simon, you've been commenting throughout these past few races. How are you feeling tonight, and what do you think is going to happen today?
Well, what's going to happen, as we've seen, is clearly very difficult to tell. You know, we've had so many different winners, I think 3 so far, and such close racing. It's going to be really interesting to see. Obviously, now we're entering to the second half of the season. We've had Bernard Vella win the first race and currently leading the championship, but only 1 point ahead of Mikael Mercheta. It will be interesting to see how those two battle out on the track. Obviously, qualifying is the first attack of this new circuit, and then after the race. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, we can't discount all the other drivers. Kirsten Muscat won out last time. A brilliant drive, excellent defending. If he can get a good position on the grid, he can maybe do that again. Maybe some other drivers can attack. You know, Justin Mifsud, always fast. So it'll be interesting to see like where those filter out and how it goes.
Yeah, the points are very close, so I'm very eager to see who will take P1 this time. What do you think about the race, today's race?
I'm sort of sticking with Simon, what he's saying. The racing is so close, and we're at a point now. The half season is already passed. So we only have 3 races left, right, Simon? 4 races left. So in those 4, you have to do the max you can get. If an error in this racetrack, since it is a really short racetrack, 1 error could mean the end of the race. Definitely. Could mean you lose 3 or 4 places because it's a short racetrack. the guys will be bunched up. So it's going to be an amazing race for us.
Yes, very excited indeed. Nico, I've heard that you have been participating in a 12-hour race. What are the preparations for 12-hour consecutively racing?
Well, we have to do a lot of setup work. Overall, I think for Honda, we put, I think, around 90 to 100, 120 hours into the endurance race preparation. Of course, with sprint race, it also depends on whether we have the endurance race as well, because that takes away some of the work. For Bad Lapel, of course, today we're doing the 12 hours of Kelami in the SimGrid World Cup. A lot of preparation with setup, with calculating if the brakes are going to last, what brakes we have to take, and all the stint planning, and well, just getting it all just summed up together and getting it perfectly just across the line again.
Yeah, okay. And what do you think about today's ring, Botania?
Botniaring, it's a very interesting track. It's the layout that we have is basically a short little rectangle with an infield section, but a very, very fun track to race. I've raced it myself quite a bit on R-Factor 2, and just every single corner is an overtaking opportunity. A lot of corners are not with too acute angles, and turn 5, which is a hairpin technically, they have a little bit of positive banking, so they can still take that at incredible speeds. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these guys will tackle that with the McLaren 720Ss.
Yeah, I think everyone's super excited for today's race. We're all on the edge to see our racers, how they're going to do today. I think they are all excited and they are all wanting to do their absolute best. I just want to wish them all the best of luck, and also to remind our viewers about our social platforms, which are Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, ESTV, 24/7 eSport channel, and Motorsport TV. I encourage everyone to follow and be in touch with us all.
Right, Kai, just a couple more moments to go until we switch over to the track. So far, I mean, we've had a couple of infos already from Simon just now about the last couple of winners. And, as we look on the standings here, Bernard Vella leading with 28 points, Mikael Medicea with 27, Jason Muscat 24, and actually joined in points with Dean Vella with 24. And right behind that, Kirsten Abea with 20 points, Kirsten, very, very rough first half for him. But then finally, Lime Rock Park, absolutely incredible defensive drive from him, just keeping all these guys behind him for most of that entire time. And, what do you think? Can you maybe repeat a miracle like that today?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Abea had a really bad first half of the season. He's managed to pull it back, as you said, in Lime Rock, and he'll be looking to keep up that momentum, trying to get those results with only 3 rounds of the championship, excluding this one. There's not long left for Abea to get himself at the front of the grid, but I think that's what he'll be looking to do.
Absolutely. Also, right behind him in the standings, Sheldon Scott Muscat, really, really unlucky, that guy. Just couldn't get a break as well. Had to DNF from Mills Metro Park after a couple of complications. But we know him already quite a lot from World Pro Racing here. Also actually racing in the same race that my team is racing in right now. So he's basically pulling double duty once again, coming into the World Pro Racing Center on Malta. And, double duty weekends always difficult, and especially jumping in between simulators. He's going to have a lot of strain on him today.
Yeah, jumping from simulator to simulator, it's a pure talent. Not many people can do it, but obviously showing that skill, managing to do it, and it'll be interesting to see if he's able to get himself in the right mindset for tonight's race to see what he's able to do.
Absolutely. Now, finally, we are on the track. Wonderful here. That is actually turn 5, the hairpin that I mentioned. A little bit of positive camber, so that enables the cars to take that a bit faster than you would think. Little turn 6 left-hander kink, now turn 7, and now the 2 right-handers, turn 8. This section a little bit reminiscent of the Hockenheimring in Germany, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a lot of fast sweeping corners, a couple of off-camber, as you saw round that final corner there. Now we'll make our way down the home straight, past the pits, as you can see now, a long corner. It's all going to be dropping on the gravel a little bit there, so that's going to hinder the momentum going down the straight before a tight right-hander, you'll be heavy on the brakes. And I think this is going to be a great overtaking zone for the drivers to try and outbrake each other. But it seems like for such a short circuit, it's all going to be carrying the momentum and carrying as much speed as possible through the corners and keeping the minimum speed up.
Absolutely. Now we can see the first couple standings here already. Medicchia once again showing very, very strong performance, already showing himself in P1 right now, but Kersner bewinged, so to say, from his win at Lime Rock Park, showing very strong performance as well. Then we have the two Velas, Dean and Bernard, followed by Jason Muscat, Andrea Rizzo, Sheldon Scott Muscat, and then at the back right now, Gianluigi Corrao.
Yeah, so 8 drivers is going to be the grid which we see today around this short circuit. So as we heard mentioned earlier, with it being such a short circuit, only being 2.6 kilometers long, all the drivers will be bunched up, and any mistake will cost you multiple positions and maybe even a lot of time lost in the pit lane if damage is acquired.
Absolutely. And as we said earlier, size is not everything about this. It's really, really difficult to overtake around here. So if you're going to make a move, you're going to be alongside each other for a bit longer if it all doesn't go quite as planned initially. And that will also, of course, bunch up the field again. And I think in these situations, you really have to make the most out of, just everything there.
Yeah, I think that also qualifying is going to be very important for these drivers. Getting track position off the start can always give you a benefit, but with it being such short lap times, with drivers making mistakes behind you, you don't want to be caught up in any sort of issues which lets other drivers run away. You always want to be that driver which is pulling away from the rest of the pack.
Absolutely, but of course, in such a competitive field, fixed setup and, the same rig quite literally, so very, very unique circumstances that we have here. It's the most equal you can get, quite literally, because it's the same equipment, it's the same car, same simulator, and, of course, same setup, which is, of course, always a thing of preference as well. And we can see how close it gets, like just behind Mika Medicchia, Kersner and the two Velas, from P2 to P3, oh, actually, now from P3 to P4, by thousands of a second, and then just half a tenth behind that, and then just 200ths behind that. So, really, Jason Muscat actually just chiming in there for a moment. But, yeah, just absolutely fantastic here. Already, again, showing how close this can be.
Yeah, it really does show, with all these factors being equivalent between the drivers, it all goes down to pure skill and pure driving talent, which I think will prevail. And as you said, with the timing being so close, that just shows that there isn't any technological advantage to any driver. No one has a better sim rig than the other. So any mistakes that are made on track, there's no blaming it on the equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just for the viewers out there, of course, a new, bigger sim rig or, a better wheel, a more expensive wheel, it doesn't make you faster. However, for example, with something like a direct drive wheel, for example, compared to Logitech G29, you do have different rates of force feedback, you do have different detail, and of course different force just applied, which can help you be a bit more consistent. So that is something that in most sim racing series, all these ultra pro racing drivers, of course, for example, Nick Tandy and everyone who went into sim racing as well during the great pandemic. And yeah, just all of that just not here today.
Yeah, so no difference between the sim rigs, as you just exclaimed in that statement right there. 17 minutes remaining of this practice session. As we see on top, a 102.829 is set by the number 11 currently with the fastest time. If that's translated into pole position later on in the qualifying session, that will be interesting. But Muscat is very close and hot on his heels.
Absolutely, and just now one of the last views we saw there for a moment, Sheldon Scott Muscat as well, 0.003 of a second. Once again, these minuscule gaps. The nice comparison that I have to this is, blink of an eye, you do it so easily. That's about 0.3 of a second. And, just so much more like of a smaller gap. It's just incredible. Like, you can't even think about that. You just always have to be so on point to just constantly improve by such small margins. And, Yeah, yet we still see it in these competitive fields, so it's really difficult to tell, who's going to win today. Quite honestly, I think my favorite after his fantastic performance on a short track 2 weeks ago, it would be Kirsten Abeya.
Yeah, Abeya, he's a really strong diver. We've seen it in previous performances, and he's looking to show it in this series as well. As you said, we've seen it in Lime Rock previously. If he's able to continue it over and manage to do it here again, that's another question. But with it being such small margins between that drive, that just shows the caliber of racing that everyone's on. It's a different level in comparison to your average sim racer. So anyone sitting at home wanting to improve, get your notepad out and get ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And also people sitting at home and maybe wanting to join in on some of this fun, just stay updated with World Pro Racing. A lot of normal events as well, just casual races and a lot of other leagues coming up. Just like, share, subscribe, on Twitter, all of the social media. And stay updated with us. And you could be joining us on these races faster than you would think.
Yeah, I think just signing up and give it a go, that's always your best shot. See how it goes. If you enjoy it, then always sign up for more. If it's not your cup of tea, then fair enough. Every man is to themselves. But the track that we're on right now, it is the short version of the Botniaring. And the long circuit is over 4 kilometers long, so a very long and grueling circuit is the long format, which we will see in separate races, but the short circuit is going to be for now. Track was originally opened in 1989, so a lot of history is packed under that tarmac, which the drivers will be finding out today.
Absolutely. Only 9 corners here as well, as opposed to, most tracks nowadays, around 15 to 25 corners even having. Or, going to the full extreme of a 20-kilometer lap, the Nordschleife, with a couple hundred corners if you go for every single kink and twist and turn. And, yeah, this time it's a bit more compact, very cozy, so to say. But something that we once again have to show here as well, that we basically mention every single time. These guys, of course, practice they can do at home, except for 2 of these guys, Andrea Rizzo and Colin Foster, who don't have an own sim rig, so both of those guys only hop in here on this weekend, in practice. They just start driving here, and yet they still manage to pull out some very good performances.
Yeah, no practicing at home. How often do you see that within a professional sim racer, especially pulling off the pace like this? A 102.6, actually, not the fastest time anymore. So we see Vela go to the top of the table, the number 9, sits a 102.529, 800ths quicker than the driver now, demoted into second position. Brilliant results from him so far. We know he's good on the defensive foot, but will he be good on the attacking foot if Vela is able to get that pole position?
Absolutely. And, well, actually, with a beard once again, I think that's... Actually, no, sorry, that's Dean Vella. Jason Muscat was the one who shaved himself last time. But Dean Vella, also a guy that we've seen quite a lot of across multiple simulators, not just R Factor 2, also Assetto Corsa Competizione, quite a lot. And, I think quite good for his... generally just the mental strength, so to say, for the preparation before this race. It's always good to see yourself close to the top just before the qualifying session.
Yeah, I think it's always a great confidence booster if you're at the top of the tables at the end of a practice session. Going into qualifying, it just gives you that extra boost, that extra bit of confidence going into the session, and that bit of self-will, knowing that you have the pace for pole position. It kind of just drives you to get that extra performance out to make sure that you're the one on top of the timing tables.
Absolutely. Someone who actually has some experience as well in, more of the real racing side here, Edwin Saliba, our guest here. So, Edwin, what is your take on this?
Well, the thing is while I'm looking at these practice sessions, I cannot help but noting how narrow this racetrack is. So, as you were mentioning, and as even Kai was mentioning, if you are behind another driver, or else if you are against wheel to wheel with another driver, it's really hard to overtake, because one mistake can end you up, for example, look at you're on the curb and the curbs are high. So you end up either on the grass or on the gravel. And that's a massive blow, because if another guy, another opponent is behind you, he can overtake both of you at once. It's really hard to guess who the winner will be. For example, between Vela and Mercia, it's only 0.08 of a second. But to Muscat, it's only 0.3 of a second. So in about 0.5 of a second, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers. It is really challenging for those guys out there. It's a narrow track. It's really challenging. The cars are wide, really wide. And in this track, you may end up with 2 cars, and that's it. It's going to be an amazing and fascinating qualifying session and race.
Absolutely. Simon, also from you saw the starts at Lime Rock Park. We had multiple, actually, simply because Lime Rock, very similar in nature to this track, you know, very narrow, as Edwin said. And actually, a lot of people very, very determined to make up most positions during the start, and then we had just a huge crash at the start.
Yeah, you know, the starts last week a couple of weeks ago at Lime Rock were kind of crazy. Hopefully, obviously, we always want clean starts, we always want clean racing, so hopefully we don't see too much of that. But something that did come out of that, we saw Kirsten the Bayer be able to take the lead and really defend for the whole race. And as you said, this is a very similar track. It's equally narrow, maybe not as easy to overtake as some others, so it will be interesting to see if maybe Kirsten or maybe another driver can essentially pull off the same thing, get to the lead and park it on every apex until he wins.
One other thing, Simon, as you mentioned, I would like to add, who will break the bravest will get into the first corner. It's really narrow. Who will be the bravest on the brakes will eventually lead. Obviously, he would end up also a bit wide as well. It's going to be a fascinating first lap.
Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, first... Oh, sorry.
Stumbling over each other can just happen over time. But yeah, everyone's just pushing very, very hard. We saw that just there out of turn 3, where the longer circuit actually rejoins the original circuit here. And as Edwin and Simon both said, you know, it's so difficult to just keep it all in this perfect window of performance here. Bernard Vella, once again, you know, our championship leader, and a lot of pressure once again. Not Portimao, sorry, wrong Portuguese racetrack. At Estoril, he had a lot of performance issues in qualifying, so to say, and finally was able to then gain a couple positions in the proceedings of the race. But either way, just so difficult, you know, to just always be on top of your game here. And Bernard Vella, you know, really showing always, even under a lot of stress in qualifying initially, for example, when he was missing pace, still able to just grab the opportunities that he gets presented and then just climb his way to the top again.
Yeah, an interesting fact as well, if you look at the top 3 in the timings right now, that's actually our top 3 in the championship. As you said, Dean Vella currently quickest in the session, top of the championship on 28 points. If you look down, second in the standings, it's Masika with 27 points. Then in third, we've got Jason Muscat with 24 points. So only 4 points is separating the top 3. So very, very close between all of them. One mistake or one DNF in one of the races, and your hopes for that championship title goes out of the window.
If I may make one single correction, it is Bernard Vella who is leading the championship, not Dean Vella. No worries.
And they just reverse their roles as well. Mercia now is fastest with 0.021 of a second on Vella. That's really close, as close as you can get. That's only the front splitter between the 2 cars, so it's really, really tight.
And they're trading fastest laps like every other minute or so, and it's always by these very, very tight margins. So I do think it would be safe to put money on one of those 2 to take the pole position in the qualifying session later.
Not quite.
Oh, sorry, Nicholas. Carry on.
Oh god. You know, it's as you said, it's really just the splitter there, and just so incredibly close. And I think these guys don't quite realize, you know, qualifying hasn't actually started yet.
They're racing during that decision.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if this is how they're racing in practice, let's see what they do in qualifying. How far are they going to push? What limits are they going to test?
One mistake, like I said, one mistake can end up the race. One thing I would like to mention as well, you mentioned as well, Nicola, that Foster doesn't have his own sim ring, right? But he's actually, the times are not okay. He's a bit not far off like he was. Like 3 laps ago, 3 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago, it was 3.5 seconds off. Now he's only 2.3. So he's steadily catching up. And if he catches up during qualifying, it could be a massive driver during the race. Because like I said, if someone else does a mistake, one of those guys, Correo or Foster, they could be leading the race or else on the podium. So it's really, really tight.
And as you say that, Rizzo, who also doesn't have a sim race at home, he's gone P3, which is incredible pace, only less than 2/10 off the lead of Machia, who consistently has been just so fast. So it's an incredibly good lap from him. Hopefully he can recreate it in qualifying, because if he can, it'll be set him up so well for the race.
Absolutely right. And, you know, you really have to just adore the adaptability of these drivers. And there it is here. Only 1.7 off of the fastest lap so far of Mercia, but still now mixing with the 2 Muscats and with Abea. So, you know, we already saw some good performances from Rizzo again and again throughout the first half of the season. But, you know, now he's getting more and more comfortable here. So far it lacked a little bit with consistency, but I think that is something that just comes over time. Maybe just needed this little 1 week break that we had, and now is just right back in it, right ready to go, and now it's going to be on the forefoot on the attack.
Definitely, and I do think it's one of those things, we can kind of see his growth race by race. Like, if you think back to the first 2 races, he was there, like, not obviously, he wasn't finishing last, but he was not really challenging anyone. He was, like, very much sticking to the lower half. But the last few races, he's really stepped up his game, and it's really, really encouraging to see.
Absolutely.
Everyone, I think, stepped up his game. I think everyone, because look at Corrao, look at the gap. It's 0.95 of a second between first and P8. It's amazing. If it's going to end up like this during qualifying and the race, I bet you we're going to have an amazing race.
Let's hope.
Look at the margin of error there is. There is no margin for error. If you step out of those high curves, which are high, the car could bounce. And you know what a car bounces when a car bounces up in the air, it grips and it shoots up. And that's what happened there. You need to be millimetrical.
Absolutely. The next problem that this track has, you know, turn 1, it's very, very encouraging to just take a little bit of gravel there on the outside. But as we saw just now, you actually bottom out rather quickly with the car. And of course, when it bottoms out at the rear wheels can't properly get traction. And, you know, just like Corral just did then, you know, rather quickly into the wall. And, you know, Kai, you have a lot of experience with karting as well. I think the smallest margin of error which you can have in motorsport, other than just racing historic cars in the rain or something like that. And, you know, overall, how much does consistency affect it there?
Well, especially over the course of a 15 or 10-minute race, consistently, it's so important. It's one thing to do a quick lap on 1-lap pace, but if you're able to do those quick laps consistently, that's when you're really going to be challenging for those top positions. And I think that also carries over even into sim racing. If you're able to consistently perform at your best, then you're definitely looking good for a good result.
You said already, over a 10 or 15-minute race, this is going to be 30 minutes. So, while it's overall, like, for GT3 racing, all the sprint series that we normally see from the SRO, from ADAC GT Masters, that's a 1-hour race. But, of course, they have a driver swap in the middle there. So this is basically just that perfect 1 driver sim that they have at the halfway mark. And, yeah, the only difference is that we will not have a driver swap here in this race, and we'll just end it after half an hour instead of carrying on with a new driver in these cars.
Yeah, half an hour. It's sort of a mini endurance, so it's all about keeping yourself composed, not pushing all the way to your limit that you're going to be making a mistake, not pushing at 110% performance, but actually conserving a little bit, maybe going at 95% performance, going not quite at your best, but going at a pace which you know is still going to be challenging for a good position.
Absolutely, and I think another thing here that we just saw, Jason Muscat having to back off a little bit more than he thought initially, trying to get a bit more of a gap there for a qualifying run. I think that's going to be another huge thing just in qualifying here, to just get that little gap for yourself, to just completely stay in your own little bubble, to just keep people out of that bubble and be able to run a completely clean lap. Because of course, which Sheldon Scott Muscat trying a different line there before he reset. But yeah, you have to find your little gap. You want, of course, some slipstream on, especially on the back straight, longest straight there between turn 1 and turn 2. But of course, in all these corners, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, and especially turn 7, turn 8, 9, and turn 1, of course, you want all the downforce you can get, and that dirty air behind the other cars, it's not going to help you.
Especially with to be challenging here. Okay, that's okay, Kai, that's okay. Traffic is going to be a real challenge here. It's amazing. Traffic is going to be a challenge here.
Yeah, I think especially with being such a short circuit track position, it's going to be very difficult between these drivers. 9 on the circuit at the time being. So with the time now running out in this practice session, this is now going to be a realistic representation of what we might be able to see in qualifying coming up very soon.
Absolutely, and again, P1 to P7, only 5/10ths of a second. Absolutely incredible so far. Now the checkered flag is out for the free practice session, and soon we're going to be going into qualifying. So this, of course, was basically the last bit of, well, quite literal practice there. I think, what do you call it again in the show business? The last practice there.
The last chance.
Pretty much, yes. And now you actually have the, well, actual last chance to get your lap in, qualifying the one where it matters. And of course, in free practice, you can have all the good laps in the world. You have a lot of time there. We had half an hour on track, but now you just have to get it all in one go incredibly quickly. And if you just can't get it properly, a bit of traffic, a little bit of a misstep there, a little bit of too much gravel on the outside of turn 1 exit, and that lap will be messed up. So we'll have to see which of the drivers can actually get that lap together.
There's such a small margin for error here for everybody on the circuit right now, especially at the top end, with it just being hundredths separating the drivers up there. You need a near perfect lap time to be on top of your game and on top of the standings when that checkered flag falls.
Absolutely, and with the nature of the track here as well, it really is centimeters and millimeters of precision, just taking the maximum amount of momentum through all these very, very high momentum corners, you know, just taking all the swing through it and just not losing anything due to rubbing off the tires or anything. And very quickly, we're going to head back to the studio before we go to qualifying, back to Simon and Edwin.
Hello, it was a very interesting practice session. Dean Vella topping the session ahead of Machita. Edwin, I'm going to go to you first. I will ask Davinia in a second. Hello. I'll go to you first. What do you think, if you had to put money on someone maybe taking the pole, who would you go for?
It is tough. It is between Vella and Mercia. So it is tough to put money on them. You have to, as Nick mentioned, you have to drive millimetrically. You have to hit every apex, hit every breaking point. You can't miss a breaking point. If you end up wide, you end up missing the lap, and there is not much time. 15 minutes, 10 minutes qualifying, and there is the first lap, which is all obviously a sighting lap. So the first lap doesn't count. So it is an extra minute for nothing. So basically a 14-minute qualifying session. If both of them do the same laps as they did in practice sessions, they are both in chance of a pole position, but they have to be precise in everything. If you hit some gravel, you end up in the ball immediately, like Coroa did. So you have to be precise in these things. And these guys are fast. They are really great gamers, and some of the best we have in Malta. So they know how to race under pressure. But the pressure those guys are putting into each other, Merci and Vella, it's a tall order. It's a really tall order.
Definitely. And, you know, Nico and Kai mentioned the track is very narrow. Traffic is going to play a massive part. if anything goes wrong and you lose a lap, you don't have time to get another one. It's going to be a massive, massive penalty for you.
Traffic will be key because you need a bit of slipstream in that in that start-finish straight, but then you have to also think about those turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and turn 4, and turn 5. So you need a bit of, you have to calculate how far the car is ahead. If it is near you, you end up destroying your whole
You're going to
lap.
get slowed down, yeah, definitely.
So you have to get a bit of a gap so you can get a bit of slipstream, but then you have to be marginal with what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So we're now going to go back to Nico and Kai before qualifying session starts.
Actually, we're gonna go get right back on track now because the qualifying session just started.
My mistake.
I said too much words there. Sorry.
All okay, of course. But yeah, similar pictures actually to the final little moments of free practice. Actually, Jason Muscat there bringing a 102.478 now, just a 10th ahead of Mercia. In front of Vela, in front of Rizzo, Scott Muscat, Vela, Corral, Abea, and Foster hasn't set a lap yet, but that will soon follow because he's now coming in as well.
Yeah, that's one way to plant a statement going into this session. Muscat puts himself at the top of the session with a 102.478. That's a great lap time to start the session, but with over 10 minutes to go remaining, there is still time to find.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I do think we're going to see all of these lap times drop and drop and drop. You know, obviously the track evolution, they're going to get faster. The drivers themselves are going to get more confident in the track, confident in their cars. It'll be interesting to see, like, maybe someone can go under 1 minute, 1 second.
That's what I was going to tell you. Is it going to be a sub 102? It will be a big task. But we're there. 102.478. We're there, eh?
Lavinia, I'll also ask you. You've seen practice session. You know, Dean Vella, Mikhail Mechia probably seem like the front runners. Now Jason Muscat's also setting the pace. Who's your money on? Where do you think this could go?
Yeah, they've probably seen as the front runners. However, I cannot not exclude the others. For example, Scott Muscat, and also Rizzo. He finished in 4th, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it would be a closer race. I'm very eager to see how this all ends up.
I think Rizzo's going to be one to watch today because he seems to be a lot more confident in the car than he has been in previous races. So hopefully he can be in the mix a bit more and challenge some of the front runners.
Definitely, I'm rooting for him. So
we're showing our biases today.
Vella's posting some fast times. He just said the fastest first sector. Purple
second sector as well.
Wow.
So he's going in for a pole position, and it's only 0.087 of a second. That's amazing.
Yeah, hopefully we're watching for the rest of this lap as he goes into the corner.
I had the same thing earlier, even closer with Mercia, because he was only a couple thousandths of a second in front of that, and now Vela a lot more gains through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Now everything just has to be perfect for these last 2 corners here. Gets very wide.
Oh, a little wide.
He's a bit wide. He's He's going to cut it back to the corner and don't start finish straight.
That was it, I think.
Oh, wow.
That's all lost in the final corner.
Yeah, running wide really cost him that time.
That's what I said before. You have to be literally millimetric. You have to pick up every apex, every braking point. It has to be perfect.
And also for every corner, you can't miss a corner.
No, of course not.
And with the elevation changes, you can see the track as well goes up and down a bit. So it is a bit bouncy. You have to be literally perfect.
Yeah, not just that. It's this very nature of the track really interesting. The last 2 corners, it's basically a double apex corner, but at the same time sort of on camber. So almost like basically like an oval. But yeah, really weird because I think with the camber that you have there, you can actually try and stay a little bit further outside and then, just carry a bit more momentum, carry a bit more swing, and then just get more speed onto the main straight again.
Exactly. Mikhail Mercia is doing the fast. There is still time in the first sector because Mercia just posted the fastest first sector. Unfortunately, he loses a bit on the second sector, it's 0.213 of a second. But there is still time in the first sector, which is the fastest sector, actually.
And we'll see, as he's going to cross the line now, he's another slower sector, so he doesn't improve on his time. But he only has a tenth to make up to overhaul Muscat. So we'll see. Maybe
the time he lost in the second sector, he got it back in the third sector.
It'll be a close. We'll come to the end of the qualifying session. There's so many. Richard's gone P3 now, and Dean Vella is on another very fast lap. Is it 2 purple sectors so far?
He went
so aggressive on the curves
exactly
there.
On those curves. The car bounced up in the air on those curves, braking hard now.
But you wouldn't tell by looking at his face how aggressive he's going. He's calm and collected.
Yeah, really, we have Dean Vella in the number 9, Mercia in the 11, Abea, you know, these 3 guys, nothing really phases them while they're racing. Oh, Bernard Vella as well, you know, quite notorious for that. They just look so relaxed the entire time, but then as soon as they cross the line, it's all great. But Vella, even though there's a little bit of a slide there in the last corner, fantastic run, only 0.08 of a second off, now in P2.
He does seem to be struggling with that final corner slightly, doesn't he? It's 2 times now we've seen him make just the smallest mistake, which is probably, honestly, cost him the top spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, though, we see such a small margin. Foster now improved to 104.1. So even further, even another 7/10 that he found from free practice. Real good run from him.
That's a really great lap from Foster. He's only 1.7 seconds. Before, while I was talking in the practice sessions, 2.3 seconds. Now he found more time. He's 1.7 seconds. That's a really good lap from Foster.
Absolutely. And Bernard Vella as well, regaining some of his confidence there, only 24 thousandths of a second behind Jason Muscat. And really, it's really getting tight here now.
Look at the first sector of Scott Muscat. Look at the first sector of Scott Muscat. 0.134 fastest. His
entire 10th.
It's incredible. There is still time in that first sector. People are going, these drivers are going fast in the first sector. Unfortunately, they lose a lot in the second sector and final sector. Well,
yeah, unfortunately for Sheldon Scott Muscat, he was on a really good lap and then unfortunately just made a mistake. Here he comes again. Stays in 7th. Still in 7th place. Kind of a quiet session for him so far. He hasn't really been up there as much as Jason Muscat spins out. Spins out on a good lap as well. A purple middle sector.
He was a purple sector, yes. He was pushing hard there. Unfortunately, the car just ran out of grip.
That's just the thing, you know, Botniaring, one of these classic racetracks, really, one of these, it still has a sort of 70s flair to it, I would say, because there's no tarmac runoffs, there's, well, barely any barriers, and, you know, a lot of grass around there right next to the track, so you really just can't use anything on the side to brake, and once again, just really incredible here. Jason Muscat still leading, Mercia now 14 thousandths of a second, then Vella 24 thousandths of a second, and then the next Vella, which is Dean, 81 thousandths of a second. So close. It's incredible. The first 4 are within a 10th of a second, Kai.
Look at Bernard Vella, first sector, 0.007 of a second, 7 thousandths of a second. The gap in the first sector only. That's amazing. Let's hope we stick with Bernard Vella because this is a great lap. Oh, he ran wide, and that's what I was saying. He just touched the green stuff of the track, and that's it. He went wide. You have to be millimetrical, and you only have 4 minutes to do it.
Definitely. Kai, what do you think? We have 4 drivers within a 10th of a second. How much are you enjoying this so far?
It's so close between the top 4. How often do you see 4 cars separated by 0.08 of a second? Both of the Vellas within 0.06 of each other, but the top 3 even closer than 0.08. You know, let's go for 0.02 of a second. You can't get much closer than that. Team Vella on a beautiful lap right now, though. He's currently through that second sector barrier into the final sector of the lap. It seemed to be where a lot of people are struggling to string the lap together around that final corner. Very wide, just clipping the grass there. You can see the rear wheels jacking around the final corner. But a 102.319 is produced out of that 720S by Dean Vella. The number 9 puts it on pole position for now. And that is 1.5 tenths now separating him from Muscat in second position. Now that's a statement.
That's how you show your competition, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is how you show your competition. You go 1.5 tenths faster when everyone's doing setting lap times within the same 10th. Go a 10th and a half faster. incredible.
It's going to be the final run now for these guys. Yellow in sector 1, someone skidded off. Someone skidded off, yellow in sector 1. But there were 2 drivers that are out on their sighting lap, their out lap, and on for the final run. There is still yellow in sector 1.
Yeah, I think it's always about the cars just quickly coming to a stop to then reset to the pit lane. So they can just have a new run again. But if they just time it perfectly now, they can have another 2 runs here. And I think Sheldon Scott Muscat especially, we saw him string a couple fantastic sectors in, but just never string the entire lap together. So really, really difficult here for him now. And one of his last chances to do this.
And as we say that, we're talking about him maybe struggling a little. He's less than half a second back. Like, struggling is a very relative term in this field because they are all so close together.
Absolutely.
Scott Muscat is 0.496 of a second till P7. That's half a second.
He's gotten a podium in this series before. He's a very, very fast driver. Seeing him in 7th is just a testament to how good these drivers are and how well they stack up against each other.
This is it. This is the fast lap, but unfortunately he ran wide on the exit of first turn. Let's see what does he do. And well, unfortunately it's 0.379 of a second. So he lost everything in that first. As soon as the car bumps up on those curves, it went on the gravel, and that's it. You lose all traction over there.
Yeah, the gravel is not where the grip is in these cars, is it?
Exactly, because the second sector, he just did his personal best. Second sector. So who is going to do a good lap? Unfortunately, that's what you get when you run a bit wide in turn 1. There is still some time, I think, for these guys to find.
He will have a chance to do another run, definitely.
Exactly.
So hopefully he can.
Unfortunately, there's a yellow in sector 3, so they need to back up a bit.
Again, I assume there'll be someone returning to the pits.
That's it. There's someone
maybe not.
Skidded. That's it.
I take that back. There was not someone returning to the pits. There was someone spun.
Oh no.
That's also going to affect their final run.
Look at
last sector though.
Last sector was incredible.
Wow.
And no one did like him. So this is the first corner. He did it so well. He drove so well. Now he's going to go up through the gears, braking hard now into the turn 2. Let's see how he does it. He's off in the first sector.
He's lost 2 tenths again.
He lost 2 tenths again. And unfortunately, he did the turn 1. He was at turn 1. He was so good at turn 1. But not all is not lost, because second sector he did another personal best. So let's see what the third sector will do.
Yes, following this lap to the end was going to be really interesting. Like we saw, he had a very, very good third sector last time. So if he can repeat that, he might be able to jump up the other a little.
At least P5. At least P5 for Scott Muscat, this is the last lap. And he exited this corner beautifully. Now braking hard again.
Dean Vella, no one's been able to match Dean Vella yet. He's still that 1.5 seconds ahead.
Let's watch Scott Muscat in the last corner. They all run a bit wide, but then they tighten up the corner and blast into the start-finish straight. And that's another fastest third sector.
P6.
P6. That's a good.
Get this last moment improvement that he needed, and Dean Vella once again.
Dean Vella, wow!
Slowest in the first 2 sectors, and then an incredible final sector, and he's gone another half a tenth in front. Jason Muscat now not on a lap. He can't beat it. So that's it. Dean Vella on pole ahead of Jason Muscat, and Mikhail Mitchell, I believe, was 3rd place. What an incredible qualifying session that was.
But yeah,
you guys ready for the race?
I don't think so.
I believe we need a glass of water after that qualifying session. Wow, what
pretty much.
So close.
Turn 1 and turn 2 will be amazing.
Turn 1, there's going to be a crash in turn 1. I'm calling it now.
Let's hope.
Basically, summed up, I think Jason Muscat, we saw it again and again. He improved a 10th. I think the main thing about his lap there was he scrubbed too much speed again and again in turn 1. But we also have to mention once more, not just adjusting to a different sim, but also to a completely different layout of car, so to say. Simply because over there in Assetto Corsa Competizione, he was driving an Aston Martin, so front engine rear-wheel drive, and now mid-engine rear-wheel drive. It is a completely different driving style, completely different mechanic as well. And, actually it's just overall from agility-wise, as it would feel, having heard it from a couple of friends of mine who have driven, front engine, rear engine this year, and mid-engine GT3 cars, it's completely different. It's basically like jumping from well, just a normal VW Golf into a go-kart with rotation. So
it's exactly the same power, though.
Pretty much. But yeah, just absolutely incredible there. Kai, after that qualifying session, what would you say? Like, how well are the qualifiers going to perform up in the race now?
I think it's going to be very close at the top end, but one driver which has outperformed himself, Dean Vella, on pole by 0.2 of a second, just finding every little bit of time that is hidden away on that circuit. He's managed to pull it out in that McLaren 720S. Remember, everyone has equal setups, equal technology at their disposal, so there's no blame on he's using a different setup, more downforce, more top speed, anything like that. It's all time that he's able to find in his driving style.
Absolutely. And it's just such a clean lap. Like the last improvement that we saw, 0.05 of a second, all in the last sector. The first two sectors were actually slower for him than before. And then in the last sector, finally got the last two corners all completed together. I think now, you know, having found his rhythm there, I think he's a proper menace to the three drivers, well, the two drivers ahead of him, and Jason Muscat, who's joined in points with him and will be sharing the front row with him.
Yeah, Vella really seems to be in his element in that final sector. He's able to find time where no one else is. We saw a lot of drivers losing time in the final sector. A lot of drivers that were on a fastest lap actually looking for pole position, losing tenths in that final sector, which just means they're not able to perform on the same level. But that's just not the case for Dean Vella. He's the only driver that it seems is able to get those purple sectors in the final sector.
Absolutely, and we saw actually the sort of learning curve, you know. First couple of ones, personal improvement, or, you know, a purple sector thrown in there as well. But then the last sector, the last two corners, always a little bit of a problem, slight little slide. And then finally in the last two moments, actually, closing moment and this closing statement for the qualifying session as well, just finally gets it all together. And quite honestly, what a statement that is to the rest of the competition for him.
I think that just asserts his dominance at the front of the field with 2 tenths over the rest of anyone else, where nearly 3 or 4 drivers would normally be separated by 2 tenths. That just shows that you're the quickest driver there, and I think he'll be the benchmark for all the drivers in the race. They'll be looking forward to overtake him, but Dean Vella, all he has to do is just try and pull away and defend his own position.
Absolutely. Just not get tangled up with any battles whatsoever. Just try to make the most out of that starting position. And of course, in a standing start, it's even more difficult because you have to nail that as well. And we saw so many times now, Lime Rock Park, for example, from row 2, we saw a jump basically almost into the lead. And yeah, we just really have to see once again, you know, with a track where the first 3 corners count so much on momentum. Well, who will be the winner and who will be the loser of the start?
And we've already seen... Oh, my apologies, Kai, continue.
No problem. I don't really think there is an answer for who's going to be the winner and who's going to lose out at the start. It's all going to be down to clutch management and clutch control off the start, as it can be your biggest gain or your biggest loss off that start-finish line. And it's going to be a question of who can master it.
Absolutely, and not just that, you know, a bit of an extra thing, you know, these GT3 cars normally not made to be in standing starts, so you have also quite, you know, aggressive traction control overall. So not only do you have to manage the clutch, you also have to just manage, if I get too much wheel spin, the traction control will bog me down, it will take away momentum that I could otherwise use. So it really is all about the cleanliness of how you get away from the grid.
Sometimes also, Nick, is when you nail the start, you also try to nail the breaking point of the first corner. It will be interesting if Dean Vella and Mercia go side by side. Who will break first? Because sometimes who will break first gets into the first corner cleaner more than the other. Am I saying right, Simon?
Definitely,
if someone
definitely
locks up, he could lock up the other guy as well. They could end up both ways. So it's going to be a fascinating start for the race.
And we've seen, you know, so many drivers already struggling with that first corner. You do that on turn 1 of the first lap, if you're on the inside, you're going to hit another car. And where's that going to go? Who's that going to jump down, you know? We could very well see a mixed up grid at cold brakes and everything. Cold tires.
If you mess up the start, your head immediately turns to late braking.
Mm-hmm.
immediately. It's a normal human thing. For those drivers, no, because they're really fast gamers and they know it. But under pressure, it's a completely different story.
For sure, definitely. Also, I'd like to draw our attention to the championship for a second, because our top two, Dean Vella and Jason Muscat, are currently 3rd and 4th in the championship, equal on points, and only like 3 or 4 behind the top two. So if they can keep this position off the start, if they can get these high places, they're going to mix up the championship so much. They're going to be right there with Bernard Vella and Michael Maicheta.
Another point is, if something happens in the start, which we all believe that something will happen in the start, the guys behind them, Rizzo, Muscat, they're there to pick up the pieces. They're there to pick up first and second place. So it is going to be fascinating, and I cannot wait for the start.
I think it's going to be interesting to watch Jason Muscat specifically. You know, he's going to want to take that lead, and if he pushes too far, he's going to not ruin, but like he's going to really damage both him and possibly Dean Vella's race. So Dean Vella is going to be defensive but safe. Jason's going to be aggressive, and the other two are going to be watching this, hoping that something happens so they can take the profit.
Like Nicolas said as well, jumping from a car to another is completely different, because the 720S, as we know, is mid-engine car, rear-wheel drive. The other car he used to drive was a front engine and rear-wheel drive. That's a completely different. You have to find the bite point of the clutch. You have to get that balance between wheel spin and, as Nicolas said, hitting the traction control.
Definitely, it's really going to be
you kill the engine.
You really need to battle with these cars to get them to go fast. Vinia, hello.
Hi.
I keep throwing to you.
I'm really enjoying you four all talking and commenting and discussing about who can win and the brakes and the clutch and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, I throw it back to you because, like, you know, I know you being a little bit quiet. So you've again watched the qualifying session, the incredibly entertaining, crazy qualifying session. Give us maybe something you think might happen in the race, good or bad.
Well, I think good if the first player will defend his position and he will keep it on until the race finishes. But also, if they do not go well with a turn, as Edwin has said before, I think that will mess up it all.
And Nico Kai, I'm going to ask you the same question. If you had to put money on something happening, what is that one thing that you're like so sure is going to happen or like could happen?
Anything and everything. But you know,
brilliant answer.
It's so difficult because honestly, it's a very, very tight track like Lime Rock Park. So half of me wants to say, you know, maybe we're going to have another restart. You know, if people are going to be very aggressive on the start, they want to make moves early, especially Sheldon Scott Muscat. You know, qualifying in 6th, of course, improving a position up. But still, I think he's going to be sort of bloodthirsty still, because last round, he had a very, very good start, made a move early, and immediately went up. And yeah, we're going to go straight back to the track now and come to the race, the main event now. Oh, actually, nope, we're 1 minute remaining, sorry. Bit of a little hiccup there.
Let's hear Kai then. Let's hear what do you think will happen at the start? Good or bad, obviously.
I think we need to expect the unexpected. That's going to be the main case of the race, and that's going to be the main thing that we need to focus on going forwards. As Dean Vella, he's obviously starting on pole after a brilliant performance in qualifying. He'll be looking to carry that over into the race. If he's able to do these laps consistently, then it's going to look like a walk in the park for Dean Vella, but he's going to have a lot of pressure from behind.
Definitely, for sure. And, you know, it's one of the things, he's in a very difficult position where if he doesn't have an aggressive start, he could lose this lead. And this track is very tight, like Lime Rock. You can conceivably defend for quite a long time. So if he loses that lead, it might be difficult for him to get it back. But yeah, if he's in the race, he's again 2 tenths faster than everyone else, he might be able to do it. He might have the overspeed to get those moves done and keep his position in the lead.
Once again, it's all about the consistency and about, you know, the positioning of your car as we head to the track. I hope now, soon-ish. Okay, no, still waiting. But you know, just
in Nico's defense, the joys of being in 3 different countries mean that communication is often a bit difficult.
Yeah, but also, you know, we're waiting for the session to move on. So yeah, just waiting for the small amount of time where the drivers go from garage screen, of course putting in the race fuel, of course, and then moving on to the grid. And yeah,
that's going to be another key as well. Fuel will be key as well, because this track, since it's short, everyone is going to push, and fuel is key. If you end up with low fuel, you can end up losing the race.
Of course, you want the lowest fuel possible, but a little bit too little, and you're gonna not be able to finish. But very important as well, P1 here on the outside. So Dean Vella very, very open for an attack down the inside into turn 1.
Exactly.
He was also ready very early. He's been on the grid a few seconds so far, like more than his other competitors. So maybe he knows already what he wants his car to be, like what his setup is. So
and
he seems
here
confident.
We go.
An excellent start for Dean.
Mechia tries to get alongside with Muscat, but right behind them, ready to pick up pieces should anything go wrong. But of course, Vella doesn't want to let that happen. Muscat now completely pulls in front, and Muscat takes the lead after turn 2 decisively.
Yes, I thought it would happen. Muscat, he did really get off the line well, but now look at Vella. Vella's going into Muscat, but yeah,
doesn't manage to make a move then.
Exactly.
Jason Muscat, an excellent start, did exactly what he needed to do to get the position of the lead. And now he's building a nice little gap for himself. Hopefully he can keep it up for the rest of the race. But again, we've seen Dean Vella very fast. Michael Macheta behind him is not wanting to just stick behind and watch. He's going to want to overtake. He's going to want to race. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out over the next 2-3 laps.
The problem Vella has is he's already 0.6 of a second behind Muscat, and Macheta's right up onto his gearbox, but he went a little bit wide. He can cut it back into the corner, and maybe if the camera goes on to Macheta, we can see what happens there.
Andre Rizzo has gotten to 6. He's overtaken Sheldon Scott Muscat. So we can see maybe even him, if he can use his speed from that he had from qualifying to challenge Abeya and Vella, he could be on for some really, really good points this race.
Yeah, really interesting as well. Right now, we have the top 4 of the championship in the top 4 of the race, just upside down in the standings, basically, because Jason Scott Muscat and Dean Vella, of course, mixed together, joint in points in 3rd place of the championship, and Michael Micher in 2nd place in the championship, now in 3rd, right behind those two. And of course, Bernard Vella, who's leading the championship by 1 point, right behind Mercia. And right behind that, we have Abeya in 5th place, also in 5th in the standings. So, should anything go wrong, I think he is more than ready to once again pull off a Lime Rock miracle.
Yeah, look at Muscat, how he manages to get that gap in turn 8. He manages to pull up 0.3 of a second on Vella. Vella was right up to his gearbox by the first 2 sectors. Now he pulled up already 0.6 of a second. That's a really good lap from Muscat. He's defending well his P1 position.
Absolutely. And just overall here, it's very, very important. This is actually, once again, I have to draw this comparison here, simply because the consistency and just making no single mistake in the entire race. It's literally just like karting, just upscaled. And, once again, I have to, ask you, Kai here, just overall, how much does the race depend on, just making the move at the right time, just waiting and then making the move that sticks?
Well, I think if you're coming from the back of the field and you're in a position where you need to make overtakes as soon as possible, it's all about arriving onto the back of the driver ahead of you, making that overtake stick at the next possible opportunity, then setting your sights to the next driver ahead of you, arriving on the back of them, making the overtakes, and so on and so on. But 2 laps completed in this race. Muscat looking very comfortable out in front, also with that fast lap going out to Machea. Currently in 3rd position, he'll be looking to apply pressure onto the back of Vella as we go down to the 3rd corner now. Machea just waiting for the perfect opportunity to make a move on Vella, as these corners are very tight and there's not much room for drivers to go side by side around here.
Absolutely. And also another thing here, right now, of course, they're all racing very aggressively, but the cars are also heavy. A lot of fuel on those GT3 machines, around 60-65 liters, I'd say, for this 30-minute race. But of course, as the cars get lighter, they normally get faster. At the same time, a lot of tire wear, especially on this circuit. You have to have a lot of mechanical grip here, and that gets extracted from the tires. These guys will really have to watch their tire wear here, Kai.
Yeah, tyre wear, it's going to be very important for these drivers. If they push early on, they're going to get maximum performance out of the tyres. But then also, if they conserve their tyres just a little bit towards the end of the race, then they're going to have a massive advantage over the rest of the field if their tyres are running, looking a little bit worse for wear. As people may say, Vela just tucking out of that slipstream for a second, looking for an opportunity to get himself back into lead. Started on pole position, dropped down to second now. Muscat looking dominant out in front, looking like a dominant force to be reckoned with, but Vela looking to take him on.
Absolutely, and once again, you know, you can just see Muscat did pull away a couple of times, but Dean Vela, you know, really just relaxed, completely composed, and now back on the attack immediately, side by side now, goes very wide in turn 5, almost gets attacked by Mercia, and Mercia also leaves himself almost open there for an attack from Bernard Vela, so very difficult, you know, you really have to time your overtaking maneuver perfectly here.
I think Dean Vela's in that really strange position where if he tries to attack and he tries to attack too, if he tries to attack too hard, Mercia isn't too far behind. He could capitalize and he could try and overtake Dean, and before long, Vela could end up in third rather than in second or first.
Muscat needs to get on with it, Muscat, in turn 1 and even in the last corner. The last corner is a good attempting opportunity. Here comes Vela. Down this back straight onto turn 2. Well,
the second time
managed the second time, second lap. I think he's trying to rehearse it. Either that or as the final corner. The final corner is so tempting because when Muscat goes a little bit wide, like not all normal drivers do, Vela could sneak up in the inside. Obviously, he compromises his exit, but there will be also the track positioning, which is going to be vital for the next lap.
Absolutely, and once again, this gap just goes down and down again. Muscat just sometimes finds a little bit of momentum, but I think just overall gets too tempted to just over-push the car a little bit. Car slides a little bit, scrubs a lot of speed off, loses a lot of its energy that it's carrying through the corner, and Vela just does that a little bit better from time to time, able to pull a slight gap now to Mercia, who actually now gets into attack range from Bernard Vela.
Yeah, at this stage of the race, I think Vela is not, Dean Vela, obviously, the P2 machine, I think he's not that comfortable with a car which is fully loaded with fuel. He was more comfortable during practice sessions and qualifying sessions because obviously the cars are lighter, there is no fuel like race trim mode. So I think that's what is helping Muscat keeping the lead, although when I'm saying that, Vela has just a bit of look on the inside, just a bit out of the slipstream to get into his mirrors, and that's it. So it's still Muscat leading, Vela, Mercia, and then Bernard Vela, all in within 1.5 seconds, 1.4 seconds. These four are romping away.
Nico, I think it's safe to say you know the track the best of all of us. Where are the overtaking moves? Where can Dean Vela possibly try to put his car to get past Muscat?
Really difficult, especially in GT3 machines, simply because these cars are so fast. And I'd say probably if you get a good run out of the last two corners, you can get a lot of momentum through turn 1, then try to launch a move into turn 2, and otherwise I'd say, well, turn 4 and turn 5 are probably your best bets for an overtaking maneuver, simply because those two are the most straight up hairpins. Those two are the most, you know, the biggest braking zones, so to say, where you can just launch a move, even sometimes around the outside of turn 5, simply because of that little bit of banking that you have, as we saw from Dean Vela earlier. But just, he wasn't quite alongside enough yet to try and make a move properly there. And just keeping that momentum up, you know, just trying to keep all that energy up, you know. Dean Vela seems to be a little bit better there. And Kai, overall, does it look to you like maybe Muscat, you know, while he's defending like this, while he's pushing hard like this to stay ahead and keep his gap, do you think maybe he's overusing his tires right now?
I think it is a possibility, but I don't think that it's definitely going to be a raging factor towards the end of the race where it becomes a situation that Muscat is just not on the pace, not able to defend from anybody due to his tyre condition. With it only being half an hour, I don't think the tyres will be under as much wear as you would see in an endurance race, which you'd normally switch tyres around every hour. So half a stint basically for every driver for their tyres, and basically what you'd be doing in an endurance race. But Muscat out in the lead, not necessarily defending from the drivers behind, but just keeping the pace consistent enough to keep his competitors at bay.
Saying that also, Muscat seems to be more nervous than Dean Vella. Dean Vella looks more, as Simon say, composed, calm. But obviously he's not calm. We're just saying that because we are looking, when we saw Dean Vella, he looked calm. But Muscat seems more aggressive even with the steering. Really just corrects the car more, just a bit more. Although his gap is still 0.7 of a second. So he can drive like this. There is no need to defend. He can just drive normally right now.
There we have Sheldon Scott Muscat, actually, our changer from ACC, from endurance to this sprint race here, and also overall rather relaxed looking while he's trying to find a way past the Bayer. And well, we saw Muscat as a guy who's very, very fast already, very, very good at planning and executing an overtake. But meanwhile, we have, Gus de Bayer, who's absolutely incredible at defending, especially around circuits like these. And I think this is a classic case of unstoppable force versus immovable object, so to say.
And this is also going to be turned up as a classic race. These four are romping away: Muscat, Vella, Mercia, and Bernard Vella. They're all four of them. They are in a league of their own.
Definitely, they're kind of putting ahead. Kai, if you're Mikel Mercia right now, you're not really close enough to attack, but equally you're just far enough away that you don't really need to defend. How do you try and make progress in this race? How do you try and gain positions?
In Mercia's shoes right now, you're just sitting behind the two drivers ahead. Obviously, you're keeping your eyes in your mirrors to keep an eye on Bear behind us. He's currently in a Vella sandwich, to be honest. He's got Dean and Bernard Vella behind him. But currently, if you're in third position with the two drivers ahead of you, close enough to be battling, but not battling at the same position, you don't want to make an overtake to make a hole in the pack. You don't want to make a gap between you and the driver in the lead, because overall, that's the position which everyone wants to go for. So you're kind of just waiting for the two drivers ahead to make a mistake or start battling, and that's when you really start to get involved.
But Muscat is doing a great performance. He's in P5, so he practiced in P7. He finished qualifying in P6, running the race in P5. That's an incredible pace for him. Unfortunately, he's 5 seconds off from Bernard Vella, but still, it's an incredible performance.
And if these guys start battling, you could see him close that gap. Like, he's really clearly has the pace. He got past two drivers so far. If he keeps up his pace, he could maybe challenge towards the end of the race. 18 minutes left. He has time to do it. Nico, what's your take on Sheldon Muscat so far? He's driven really, really well.
We talked about this earlier. There's always the difference, between if you get along better in a race setting or in a qualifying setting. And quite honestly, I'd say Sheldon Scott Muscat is really one of these, classic race drivers properly. He's a racer. He's all about the wheel-to-wheel battles, and he's all about, placing the car right in that opening that the driver left that he didn't even know existed. So I think if the top four just slow each other down a bit more, there's still over half the race to go. I think there's enough time for Sheldon Scott Muscat to just try and collect himself, conserve his tires a little bit before he starts battling, and still gain a bit of time on them, and then maybe launch an attack on the top 5 here, on the top 4. Sorry.
My guess is that Dean Vella is either studying Muscat, or else Muscat is really good to keep the P1 position, because he's still there, 0.6 of a second. It's hovering, 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second. So I'm pretty sure that Vella is studying Muscat, where his weak points are. Although, having said that, Vella has some weak points of his own, which Mercia is looking. For example, at the exit of this corner, he's always a bit wide. Now, this lap, he just made it pair. But at turn 2, he's always a bit wide onto that curb and onto that a bit runoff area, that bit of gravel trap. Like here, for example, he's always a bit wide in this corner. Mercia can just maybe sneak in if he's a bit closer to the guy, to Dean Vella.
Jason Muscat runs ever so slightly wide there, could possibly give Dean Vella a chance to catch up. And if like Edmund was saying, if he has been studying him, if he knows where his weak points are, he could try and use that against him in future laps.
To be a test of either endurance, which is only 30 minutes, obviously, but it's going to be a test of endurance and nerves, because they both know, Vella and Muscat know, that they are studying each other. Because Vella, look at how much faster he's going into the first corner. He's got so much minimum speed into the first corner. He's going into his slipstream, going down to the gears, down to the second corner, braking hard now, but unfortunately he's not going to launch an attack on this lap. I think he's studying Muscat.
In this position right now, of course, Vela is just keeping an eye on Muscat ahead. He'll be looking for his weak points, finding where he can take advantage on any mistakes. That the driver ahead in that number 10 is maybe, unfortunately, making a mistake. Vela just needs to jump at every opportunity, every strike that he is able to take, he needs to, as we're now... The clock is going towards the second half of the race. Nearly 15 minutes has already been completed. And Vela just caught in second position right now. Not really able to do anything in the position that he's in. But Muscat controlling the field behind him, controlling the pace which drivers are able to go out behind him. You can see Machea actually under a lot of pressure from Bernard Vela as they went around that final corner there. Around the first corner, you can see Vela carrying so much more speed than our current leader. He just needs to take advantage of that at one point and try and get that overtake stuck and done.
I feel like Jason Muscat, while being slower through the corner, is faster on the exit, which is just letting him stay ahead down the straight. I think Vela might do well to try and get a more tidy entrance into the corner and really challenge him down the straight into turn 2.
Scott is really working hard on the steering wheel. He's just correcting that McLaren every single corner while the Vela's just, well, cruising around, sort of, but still the gap is 0.7 of seconds, hovering. While having said that, Scott Muscat's gap is 4.9 seconds, 5 seconds now. It was 6 seconds 2 laps ago. So he is reeling them in slowly. Maybe there is not enough time, but he is gaining on them.
Imagine how frustrating it must be from Bernard Vela's position, just watching these three drivers ahead of you, knowing that like you can't really do much. You're all traveling at such a similar pace, which is something we saw in qualifying. You know, they were setting lap times within tenths of each other. They are so evenly matched.
You cannot just launch an attack. Otherwise, you end up either you on the road or as your opponent on the road. So you cannot just launch an attack and that's it. You have to wait. There is still 13.5 minutes to go in this race. So there is still plenty of action to do. We just have to wait for them to cross the line whenever it is going to start the final lap. Scott Muscat was 4.6 seconds a moment ago. Now it's back up to 4.8. So he is really reeling them in, and it could be a factor at the final stages of the race.
And while that was going on, Dean Vela, very big issue there for Dean Vela.
He's down to third.
He's down in P3.
Down to P5 actually.
P5, oh, Dean Vela's P5, Bernard Vela's P3. So he must have done it. He did make a mistake somewhere, which we didn't caught it.
Yeah, just coming into turn 4, they're a bit too wide, I think. Kai, did you get a better look at that?
Yeah, he just overcooked the corner just a little bit, ran onto the gravel, and then the gravel just pulled the car off of the tarmac, and then that was enough for him, as we now see Mache get promoted in the second position, but Muscat will be sitting very nicely in P1 now with that 1 second gap, so that pressure has been fully relieved off the shoulders of our current leader. But Machea, he's really going to have to push himself to his limits now if he wants to get this win.
For sure, and you know, Miguel Machea now is going to go for it. He has a bit of clean air, so he can maybe push to get away from Bernard Vela. But Dean Vela, boy, he's going to be so frustrated with that move. It wasn't a big mistake, it was just unlucky enough to be dragged off the track and lose so much time.
That's what we said during practice and qualifying. You have to be millimetrical. Every corner and every lap counts. If you make a mistake, while we do that, Muscat even did a mistake there, the car just stepped at him, and Merci is right up to his tail, 0.6 of a second now, the gap as they cross the line to start we have still 11 minutes to go on this race, and Muscat reamed up Muscat because Muscat just snapped the steering wheel, and I told you immediately, he's working so hard on that McLaren to keep it in shape.
Kai, I don't know if you've ever been in this position in your races. When you've been battling someone for the whole race and then suddenly they make a mistake or they have to pit or something, and so now there's a different driver behind you, how much do you have to adapt the way you drive and the way you attack?
I think when you're in a defending position, it's all about learning the driver's offensive tactics, see what they're trying to do in comparison to you, where they try to overtake you, and then adapt your own driving around that, maybe going a little bit faster into a corner, compromising on the exit, but inevitably not losing that position, not losing enough time as you would if that driver did get in front of you. But when there is a new driver behind you, it's all about keeping yourself composed, and trying to defend your position as much as possible. Find where they're quicker than you, find where you're quicker than them, and then kind of center yourself in that position.
Vella being in P5. There is, as we see the replay of Vella. Oh, he overcooked it. He overcooked it.
A snap of overs there just sent him pretty much all the way to the barrier. He's going to be so frustrated with that.
They're so on the limit, these guys. They're really on the limit. And let's see now where Muscat is. He's just 0.3 of a second of Mercia, and Bernard Vella is right up towards them. So if these guys make a mistake, Bernard Vella could catch him.
I'm just going to say, this is so special what's about Botniaring, you know, at, for example, Kelami even, at Spa-Francorchamps, especially around Radio and all that, if you make a little mistake there, most of the time you have tarmac runoffs now. Here it's instantly grass, there's no grip in the grass whatsoever, and immediately you just lose 5 seconds, get thrown back completely, and while all that was going on, you know, the top 3 are now completely together, as we see Mercia having a sniff of exhaust fumes from Jason Muscat. Sheldon Scott Muscat is actually right behind them as well.
Doesn't seem to catch Scott Muscat. So as I predicted, Scott Muscat is coming into the game by simply driving as fast as he can. He's in P4. He started P7.
Definitely, you know, we have 10 minutes left now. Conceivably, he might be able to make up that move on Scott Muscat, but time is running out, and time's running out for Mercia as well. You know, we can see him there, maybe having his little look, just diving onto the DRS, the slipstream for a second. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes with the next 10 minutes, how he can race and how he can attack.
Absolutely, and just as well, Mika Mercia, I think one thing that we had in Portimao, it's basically, Mercia is really, really good with tire conservation, so really just trying to keep the pace up through a longer race. I think on the long run, especially since we saw Muscat now struggling a bit more, I think it's now going to be all about Muscat placing his car correctly to just not enable an overtake whatsoever, and at the same time Mercia just trying to get every bit of pace advantage that he currently has in his tires to just get a bit more momentum, get a bit of an overdrive, so to say, on Jason Muscat, and then pull alongside and make the move.
As we see their faces in the corner, some little behind-the-scenes information. These two are actually sitting right next to each other here in our Maltese facility. So just knowing that, having them right there on track and physically is going to be a little extra pressure.
Said that as well. Look at Scott Muscat, the gap from the front. It used to be 6 seconds. Now it's only 2.2 seconds. He is really reeling them in, and he could be a big factor. Still 8 minutes to go, so there is still time to find.
With 8 minutes to go, do you think that Rizzo can recover from the huge gap that is between him and Vella?
It will be difficult. I don't think so. I don't think there's enough time. If there's a mistake, he could very easily capitalize. I don't know. Kai and Nico, what's your take on that, on like where Rizzo is?
Rizzo, he's in a difficult position right now with 9 seconds separating him and the leader, 4 seconds separating him. And obviously Bernard Vella currently in 5th position. Rizzo, he's been performing very well so far over this event. He's currently in 5th position, 6th position, sorry, but 4 seconds in around 7 or 8 laps. That's a big ask there, as we see running onto the gravel there. That's Mercia making a little bit of a mistake, so that gap will now extend just a little bit more breathing room there for Muscat out in the lead. And going into that corner there, Bernard Vella, a much tighter line than the rest of the drivers ahead of him, and currently in 3rd position. Not much more he can do, but Mercia, we've talked about him being good. It's going to be all or nothing, throwing caution to the wind, will these drivers, and it's going to be pushing to the limits.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be taking caution today. I think they're going to push themselves and their opponents to the limit, and I'm pretty sure that Mercia will throw his car to Muscat. I'm pretty sure. It's 6 minutes to go, and I'm sure he's going to throw his car for sure. He wants this win. He's pushing for this win. Bernard Vella, he's sitting in P3, but we can see Mercia wants this win. He's showing his car to Muscat's mirrors all the time, every lap, just showing his car out of the slipstream so Muscat can see him in his mirrors. So he wants this win, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get it.
I think he's waiting for the perfect opportunity to attack and go for the win with only a bit more than 5 minutes left. I think he's waiting for the perfect time. I think it will be maybe the last 3 minutes, 2 minutes that he will actually make his move.
One small step from Muscat and Mejia can take it.
One counterpoint to what you two were mentioning, Mejia is currently our championship leader. He's thinking about that championship. Does he want to risk it? Does he want to risk making a mistake and losing positions? I don't know, like 5 minutes left.
Yeah, again, small correction there. Bernard Vella in third right now is championship leader.
Currently.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry.
Vella is the one who wants, even that corner, first turn, Muscat, it's the third time he went a bit wide. Muscat, third time he went a bit wide and on the given. Bernard Vella could just stay there in P3. Let these two bother each other and he can just stay in P3. If those two make a mistake, they run both wide. Bernard Vella could pick up the pieces. He can just stay there and look at Scott Muscat. He's only 2.3 seconds. He's really reeled them in. That's a really strong drive from Scott Muscat, coming from P6, going down to P7, now to P4. Really strong drive.
Absolutely. At the same time, this would be really, really interesting for the championship right now, as it would stand. If they would arrive in this order at the finish line, Michael Mejia would actually take the championship lead by 1 point, and Jason Muscat and Bernard Vella would actually be joint second place in the standings. So even more pressure now. Only 3 rounds to go after that, and of course the last round is a 1-hour race, so twice as much racing action as this.
That's amazing. And Muscat in P1, although he's fighting that car by the skin of his teeth, he is really, really in a solid position and doing a solid drive in P1 with all the pressure that he had from Dean Vella and now Mejia. That's a really strong drive from Muscat in P1. Still there, still in control of everything. He's still just in control of that gap. It's 0.5 second, 0.6 of a second. They just hovering. Still a really good drive.
Absolutely.
I do think it's very important to commend Jason Muscat on how he's been driving today. Like he's made some small mistakes, but they've never been big enough to really cost him anything, other than just a couple of tenths, which is always made back. He's driving very, very well.
While Dean Vella, we always said that Dean Vella was the favorite. He did the mistake with no pressure at all. He was exerting the pressure. He was not under pressure. He was just putting pressure on Muscat. So there you go.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you just put too much pressure, you can also just slip up a little bit. And especially in these racing situations, it's so difficult to just completely be there all the time, Of course, you have to make sure, if you're chasing someone for a long time, that you don't make the same mistakes as he does when you're exerting pressure on them. But also, you have to look out that you just don't get caught out by yourself there and actually make a mistake yourself while you're putting so much pressure on.
Muscat is really pushing. He just took 2 bollards out of the racetrack. He is really pushing. 1.9 seconds now the gap.
And Bernard Vella has dropped back a little off the back of Mejia. So
Scott was... He didn't do anything after the mistake. He just stayed in P5, unfortunately for him.
But yeah, it will be interesting to see if Scott Muscat can challenge Bernard Vella for that third position. Like 2 minutes left, there isn't much time. If he can do it, it'll be impressive. I think he might be a bit too far back though. Kai, what do you think about that and Scott Muscat's performance in general?
Muscat, he's been doing a great job right now. 1.9 seconds off his brother in the lead, his relative in the lead right now. Mejia currently in second, 2 tenths off the leader. It's starting to get even closer than it was before. That gap just closing lap by lap, but just not close enough to be within that overtaking range of the car ahead. Mejia in a difficult position right now. He's very close to the leader right now, very close to the car ahead of him, but just not close enough. This is the most challenging position right now because you need to keep yourself calm and composed and make sure that you're ready to pounce at any opportunity that gets thrown in your direction.
If Muscat does a bit of a mistake, just a bit wider on exit, just a little bit braking too much, that's it. Mejia will have him.
Nico, you're obviously a racing driver. Have you ever been when you're in this situation, a minute left, maybe a lap or 2, how desperate are you going to feel to get this win, make this move done?
I mean, I have experience from that in mixed conditions with dry tires, trying to defend the position, so I understand what pressure Jason Muscat is in right now. Having your opponent all over the back of you and just trying to get or to stay ahead, and that was just the mistake that Michael Mejia was looking for. Not enough momentum out of turn 1, and just as I was elaborating how much stress that is, he's now trying to pull alongside again. And actually does contact. Mejia goes off, I think.
They touch. Still Mejia is in the lead. Still Mejia in the lead.
No, he's not anymore. Bernard Vella has taken the lead. Scott Muscat into third.
Oh my god, how it
Scott
changed,
Muscat is in third. Scott Muscat is in third. That's an impressive, and that's what I told you. One mistake, Bernard Vella could take it. Bernard Vella took it, and that's an impressive move by Bernard Vella.
He's going to be so happy with that. You know, he was in the perfect place at the perfect time, just to profit off getting turned round, well, half spun.
And that's so Bernard Vella is in the lead, Muscat, and Scott Muscat in third place, having started from P6 down to P7 up to third, and Mejia up P4 as we are about to start maybe the final lap.
No, that's the end of the race. Bernard Vella won the race ahead of Jason Muscat and Sheldon Scott Muscat. What an incredible final lap!
I think the stewards will have a look at that. I will also have to say, though, what incredible car control there from Michael Mejia, because turn 3, you know, an open corner, and after the entry already, you know, when you already have the load change going on, you know, then he gets hit, that slight little bump from behind, because of course Jason Muscat doesn't want to fall behind, but still, you know, a bit too aggressive maybe. The stewards will have to look over that, and you know, this is once again one of these post-race decisions that will affect the overall standings, of course. But Bernard Vella at the right place at the right time. Kai, would you have expected him here at the top now?
Bernard Vella, I think it was the underdog coming into that final lap. It all started to kick off. We saw there Mejia go for the overtake after the mistake that was made there by Muscat on the first corner. And then, to put it lightly, an aggressive retaliation there from Muscat to try and dive down the inside, get that position back as soon as possible. Just didn't pay off there for either of them, to be honest. Mejia getting half spun from a tap on the rear end of his car, nearly losing it, and unfortunately did lose any chance of getting the win as he finishes in 4th position. But Scott Muscat, 3rd position, just managed to pick up all the scraps, clear up all the situation, and bag himself a very nice podium.
I'm gonna be honest, if that would end up potentially, you know, as we had the similar situation at Lime Rock Park, if that would be a 5-second penalty, that would actually elevate Sheldon Scott Muscat up to 2nd place and then Mejia up to 3rd place. Of course, not a lot of consolation, you know, because he could have had the win there. That move was sticking. It was, you know, fantastically executed. Waited perfectly to just finally pull the trigger, so to say. And, you know, a little bit of misjudgment, of course. You know, Jason Muscat tried to, of course, defend that position, not wanting to give up after half an hour of defending. And, you know, contact like this, it can always happen. But this is also why we have the FIA accredited stewards here. Adrian Figallo and, of course, I forgot his name.
Justin Mifsud.
No, not Justin. Sorry, George Muscat. Sorry. The first name just escaped my mind there for a moment.
Yeah, but yeah, I really did execute it well. And I said before, there were 3 laps or 4 laps, one after each other, that Muscat was wide on the exit of the first turn. And Mejia saw it. He knew about it. He knew about it all along. That Muscat is always wide at turn 1. Am I right, Simon? He knew it all along.
Yes, for sure.
And that I was saying immediately, he needs to pick up whatever slight mistake. He knew it, that he's going to be wide. He knew he's going to be wide. So he came wide himself at the first corner entry. So he could shoot himself up. And Mejia, while he was, Muscat, while he was over on the side of the track, Mejia could slide in. And that's what happened.
We were talking about it all race long, you know, it's going to come, like, the longer the race goes on, the more they were stuck behind each other, the pressure was going to build. Mejia pulled off an incredible move, like, to his credit, it was such a good overtake.
An amazing credit. And I think...
Unfortunate for him, like, I do think, you know, you talk about deserving and not deserving, I don't think that's the right really conversation, but I think Mejia did enough to win this race, and unfortunately, we'll see what happens with the stewarding afterwards, but Jason Muscat's defense was a bit too aggressive, in my opinion.
It was aggressive, but in the end of the day, it was the final lap. You would expect that he was going to retaliate. You would expect that he was going to stick the nose in. Obviously, he wasn't side by side. So maybe there is a bit of controversy there because he wasn't exactly side by side. It was just the front nose to the back wheel of Mercia. He wasn't exactly side by side. We all saw it. He just stepped the bumper, the rear bumper of Mercia. So it is slightly controversial. But again, if we were in that situation, we would have done the same thing. It's the final lap. You would be sort of desperate to win it after the whole 30 minutes defending the first place.
I suppose so. Nico and Kai, obviously, you two are both racers. If you were in that situation, you've just been overtaken. It's the final lap, or maybe the penultimate one. At that point, they probably didn't know. Would you have gone for that move? Would you have tried to defend your position that aggressively?
I think it was a little bit overly aggressive for that overtake. It was just a retaliation. It was instinct. He's lost that position because of a mistake, and he instantly wants to get it back. He doesn't want to lose any time within that lap. Knowing that it's such a short lap, just over 1 minute, 9 corners, so not much time to make any overtakes. It was a little bit overly aggressive for my opinion, but I'll let that down to the stewards.
Davinia would have told him ladies first. Right?
From my end, I think I'm more impressed with Sheldon Scott Muscat's performance. As we've seen throughout the race, Bernard Vella and Jason Muscat were first, second, third, fourth all the time. However, Sheldon Scott Muscat started from P6 and ended up P3. So I think that was a very impressive race from his side.
I was mentioning it all race. He started P6. He was gaining, and you could see him gaining. Even on the pictures, you could see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then him gaining. That's a really strong podium, P3. Yeah, that's an incredible. P7 in practice, P6 in qualifying, down to P7 in the race. He fought it back, P6. Now P3. That's an incredible race.
It is a testament to like consistent driving, how he could recover so much time after maybe not the best start, maybe not the best opening field after the race. To get back to P3, incredible. A very well done drive.
Strong drive.
But that is really one of the things of Sheldon Scott Muscat, of course. You know, he's just always there. He's always consistent. And quite frankly, if that penalty would come in for Jason Muscat with that last lap incident, that would mean he would have gained, from dropping down to 7th at the start, he would have overtaken 5 cars, so half of the grid. So a very deserved podium in that case. And overall, just what's your take on the overall situation with this race, Kai?
It was a very explosive race, to put it one way. We saw it very calm for the first, let's say, 20 minutes of the race. And then with 10 minutes remaining, that's when it all started to kick off. We saw that mistake there from Dean Vella, which dropped him down the field. Bernard Vella got involved in the situation. Then we saw between Machea and Muscat, we saw that incident. And then managing to take the win there, Bernard Vella, a brilliant drive from him, but definitely Muscat, just managing to recover that race from 6th to 3rd on that final lap. Who would have guessed that?
Yeah, honestly, especially with switching around so much and perhaps him also having to do another shift, or maybe him having organized similarly to me, not to have another shift in the 12-hour race. Still, it's a lot of strain that's on you, you have to readjust so much. And of course, from your home equipment to the equipment here in the sim racing center in Malta. And it's really not easy, Same thing as, of course, for Colin Foster and Andrea Rizzo as well, who also both had solid performances. Foster we saw actually rather late in the race, without a rear wing. And I was kind of like thinking, the track is so tight, surely he's going to get in the way of someone. But, no problem whatsoever for him, lets everyone through after turn 3. No problem, just everyone through, no problem whatsoever. So really good awareness from him as well. And just really good here. Kai, we've got Sheldon now in the studio. I'll give you to him.
Hello, Sheldon. Brilliant race from there. Not the best start to the race. I think that's a fair way of putting it. But on that final lap, with everything starting to kick off, kept yourself calm and composed, managed to make your way through the field, cleaned up all the scraps of that battle. Tell us how it was from your perception.
Not at all. Good evening, guys. Yeah, qualifying didn't go so well. I had a better lap, but I couldn't just put it in. I was making too much mistakes on track. And then I got frustrated, and then I just pressed escape and hoped for the best for the race, which, you know, it was a good race. I think I made a good recovery from P7, I think, yeah, to P3 at the end with the mistake at with Jason and Mikael at the I think turn 3, something like that. Yeah, I think I was quite lucky there to get the podium, but yeah, everyone had good pace. Yeah, that's it.
Did you ever thought you were going to arrive and finish the race in P3? Because I was telling all these guys, all the race, I was watching you instead of watching 1, 2, 3, and 4. I was watching you. As every time you passed there, I saw the gap shrinking down. 5 seconds, 4.8, 4. And then all of a sudden, 2 seconds, 1 point. I told them already, Scott Musca is going to get a podium. And you did. Did you ever imagine that you were going to finish in P3?
Well, I knew I had a good pace, you know, around this track from qualifying, and I just had to stay calm, stay consistent, make no mistakes, because if you make a mistake, if you go on the grass, you lose a lot of time, you lose like 2 tenths down the straight for sure. So yeah, I had to be consistent, try to push as well, and the tires were getting very old. The grip was, you know, fading away. Yeah, and then the podium happened.
You got
Yeah, I was closing the gap.
the greatest grip on those tires, because you were really incredible. I told these guys that's a really strong drive from P6 to P3. That's a really strong drive.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, next up we have our second place sitter, of course. That is Jason Muscat with that very eventful, well, last lap there in turn 3 with, I think, probably a hard stopper pretty much. And yeah, we're going to have him over there in a moment.
I just love final laps. Final lap battles are the best.
But yeah, overall, just so much battling the entire time. You know, such a fantastic drive from him the entire time. And I think just a couple of moments until we have him.
Yeah,
and yeah, there we are. having reports from our on-site interviewer, Edwin. But Jason, hello there. How are you feeling after this race?
Yeah, disappointed because of the last lap incident. Yeah, I made a mistake going into the first corner, which I shouldn't have in the first place. And then I had the incident with Mikhail. I'm not sure exactly who was at fault. I haven't seen the replay yet, but yeah, I feel I should have won the race.
Yeah, I think we all did that. But aside from the incident, that was a great start and a great first turn.
Yes,
that was the key moment actually of the race.
It was. After that, just managing the pace. I feel made a lot of mistakes even during the race, but the others were not able to capitalize because every time I gained built a gap of 1 second, I make a mistake, they come back to me. But yeah, in the end,
yeah, still a solid drive. Apart from the incident, still a solid drive. We all know what it means. I mean, it's frustration as well. 30 minutes leading and then ending up it's frustration. So we see what the stewards will do. Maybe they won't give you anything and you end up still in P2. So it's not the end of the world either. Still a great drive as well.
Thank you.
Right, so I think next up we have Bernard Vella. So once again to Kai to interview him at that point. But yeah, I think Bernard Vella, really the unexpected victor here. You know, always having good times, always being in the mix for the top 4, but never quite able to, you know, quite get to the front of the train up until, you know, that issue happens from Dean Vella. Bit too deep into the corner, gets on the grass, and the rest of the top 4 get past. And of course, you know, then last lap, I think he was more surprised than we were at the time, Kai.
Yeah, Bernard Vella, brilliant race from him, but he's ready in the commentary, in the on-site box there. Bernard Vella, hello, brilliant race from you. In the mix throughout the whole race, not really contending for any top positions, but going into that final lap, though, just able to make a quick few overtakes, get yourself to the front of the field, and secure yourself a first position. How does that one feel?
It feels quite good. I had the pace throughout the whole race to win, so I was quite disappointed if I got third or second there because I had a really good pace, but I just waited for the mistakes and they came, so that's what you need to do to win the championship.
Did you find any challenges throughout the race?
The tire wear was really bad, so the front left was vibrating a lot, so we had to make sure we manage that throughout the race to make sure we make it to the end and have pace in the final few laps.
However, now you're keeping the first place in the charts, so I think you're very happy about that, right?
Yeah, obviously you need to extend the points as much as possible, so we'll see what's to come.
While during the race, you were, apart from managing tires and fuel economy, were you just managing the pace? Or you're just, meaning sitting there in P4 waiting, or you were pushing all the way and the mistakes came and then you ended up in?
You need to make sure that you don't push a lot, because if you push a lot, the tires go off a lot, they start overheating, graining and blistering, and it is just a falling slope from there. So we need to make sure that you're not pushing too hard. I just stood there because when you're that close, all 4 cars in 1 second, an incident's going to happen. So you need to make sure you don't get involved in that.
Great. Solid drive, Bernard.
Thank you.
So, absolutely incredible race today. Quite honestly, I think that was a surprise in every single way conceivable. Kai, first time we commentated together. Overall, I think a very good race to start that as well on. And quite honestly, your personal highlights for this evening?
I think it has to be the final lap. Everything kind of unfolded, everything that was building up to this moment, it really kind of exploded in one situation. And I think the finishing order was very different to what a lot of us expected in that situation. But there we go. Bernard, as we saw, Bernard Vella taking that win. He'll be very happy with that result, extending his championship lead. And with only 3 rounds remaining, it'll be interesting to see which way this championship goes.
Absolutely. And of course, we still have 3 rounds, sorry, the wrong word for that, to go. Of course, 2 of them will be the format that we know already, 30-minute races, but the last round, of course, 1-hour race. So really, really difficult, of course, for these guys here still. And I think Bernard Vella, though, after the last couple of rounds, slowly going further down in the finishing order, now a 2nd win in the series. I think he's got a lot of confidence now again, and this will be good for him in the second half of the series. Now we're going to go back to the studio very quickly for some last comments.
So you guys mentioned any highlights that we saw throughout the race. I think from my end, my highlight would be Sheldon Scott Muscat, how he went from P6 till P3. I think that shows the determination that he had. It shows to every race car driver not to give up and keep persisting until you get the position that you truly deserve.
Definitely. And, I think in the same vein, Bernard Vella driving P4 for most of the race and just profiting off everyone's mistakes really to win the race. He was leading the championship. He's now leading it by a much bigger margin as P2 finished, the P2 in the second place in the championship, Mikel Mechia finished 4th, I believe. He's increased that gap. He's going into these final 3 rounds with a nice margin. Like, he can have those days where he's maybe finishing 4th instead of 2nd, and he's still going to be comfortable. It's now up to Mikel Mechia, Jason Muscat to fight back, and even Dean Vella, because Jason and Dean are equal in the points.
Edwin, what do you think?
I just love final laps. That's what I just love final lap battles. It can go out for 2 hours. The final lap is always the best lap where there is a battle like this. 4 drivers fighting it out with Scott Muscat in P5, reeling them in. That's honestly speaking, I told him as well, that's an incredible drive to come from P6 with that level of drivers. They're all pushing hard. They're all sort of maintaining distance, maintaining as well their lap times, hovering in the same area. That's a really strong drive. Obviously, he ended up in P3 by other people's mistake. But that's racing. That's what you get when it's racing. You just sit there, wait a bit. That's what sort of endure with no pit stops. That's what it does. You just need to wait, sit there, and be consistent with the lap times. Otherwise, the thing is also, he was there. If he was in P7 or is not doing really good lap times, he wouldn't have ended up in P3. So he was there, and that's an incredible thing. So it's really and for Bernard Vella, for these final 3 rounds, this is a big boost for him. This is an incredible boost for him. He's going into these 3 rounds, final 3 rounds, leading the championship, 2 wins, latest one now. This is a big boost for him.
Definitely. And talking back to Sheldon's cup of Scott for a second, I was just talking to him outside. He was saying, talking about qualifying, where he started P6, a bit disappointing for him. But we saw this in the qualifying session, and he just confirmed it. He definitely had the pace to be up there, He was saying that he probably could have gotten pole if he had managed to string a lap together, but he kept making these small mistakes, and it's those mistakes that really cost him. But we saw he had the pace, and in race fuel on those tires, he really could just put in the lap times he couldn't put in qualifying. He was consistently fast, consistently catching the leaders who were battling among themselves, slowing each other down. And, he profited. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to do in these races. If you don't get good enough qualifying, making up for in the race he did everything he could do today. And the fact that there's a 3rd place, potentially a 2nd, obviously, we can't confirm that. We don't know yet. The decision will be made later today. But regardless, a podium finish for a rather relatively disappointing qualifying session, so good. And the same for Bernard Vella, as you mentioned. The same thing. Qualified 4th place, not as high as he would have wanted. He had the pace. As we saw, they all had the pace in the top 4, within a 10th or 2.
He didn't get a great start as well. The greatest start was Muscat. So ending up winning the race, that's an incredible achievement.
So Simon and Edwin, thank you for being here with us today. Back to you, Nico.
Right, and that was pretty much it for this evening. Fantastic race in Finland, of course. Not one of the most well-known circuits, of course, as well. But we're going to return to a circuit with the same sort of rhythm. Portland in America, a bit more famous, through the IMSA series, through IndyCar, of course, through the SRO series there. And what do you think about the track so far, Kai?
I think it provided some brilliant action. It provided this evening and provided viewers at home and us with some brilliant action to entertain us this evening.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to the same thing, of course, again next week. And I'd say this is a pretty good note to end on from the Malta National GT3 Championship, fueled by Enemed, of course, on Arthur Actor 2. Sponsored by Enemed, Gaming Malta, the Malta Motorsport Federation, 3CX, and Vibe FM, of course. We were brought to you on ESTV, Motorsports TV, and TVM Sport, and of course, all of our social media here at World Pro Racing. So, I hope we see you again next week, and have a good night, everyone.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.
L-ewwel ħaġa bħala Gaming Malta l-esports huwa settur importanti ħafna għalina. Meta nħarsu lej gaming ma nitkellmux biss fuq l-online gaming, imma il-video gaming u anki l-esports. L-esports huwa settur li internazzjonalment qed jikber ħafna u Malta għandha rol importanti wkoll x'tilab f'dan is-settur. Coming back to home, il-World Pro Racing hija kumpanija li dit mill-Maltin u qed tagħmel suċċess internazzjonali. Ġifieri Malta għalija hija pedina għal l-ambizzjonijiet tagħhom fuq pjan internazzjonali.
L-ewwel rrid insir Formula 1 driver u ngħaddi lil Lewis Hamilton bir-rekord tiegħu. U mbagħad wara rrid insir engineer.
Mela, t-tifel huwa professional driver diġà tal-go-karts, tella barra minn Malta nkajsu u training u hekk allura bejn telli oħra meta ma jkunux jistgħu jiċċessaw it-trek huwa tajjeb li jiġi hawnhekk jitrejnja hija simulator bħal go-kart hija tisuq ġol l-istess trakka li jsuqgħu Malta lura jkun qiegħed training minflok jaġġa trakka stess. Għandu l-coach tiegħu tas-CRG stess, jgħalmu jagħtu ħtiebs barra minn Malta l-istess ħaġa kalmuhom kif iduru mal-kantunieri, race line, il-ħinijiet x'in jafsu l-gass, il-break. Hija teknika ħafna l-ħaġa, ġifieri kapaċi ħafna iktar minn it-tifel. Huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga. Meta jmorru ġa trakku ma stess jgħidulek aħna nofsuna żvogajna flaxej jħossuhom tranquilli għax ineħħu l-istress tal-ġurnata, l-istress tal-iskola, kollox. Plus li huwa sport sabiħ għalihom li jitrejnjaw. It-tifel trabba ġol karozzi, allura għalih hija passjoni. Dan iċ-ċentru għalih huwa post fejn jista' jiżvoga jkunu. Għal dawk il-parents forsi li jibżaw jgħidulek għax huwa perikolus, hawnhekk m'hawnx periklu. Edin protetti, ġobini, it-tfal jaraw xiridu. Jekk ma jibdewx issa minn ta' żgħira xorta jibdew meta jkunu kbar, so ma jteżwelithom l-opportunitajiet kollha li tkun tista' tihom meta jkunu żgħar.
Jien ma' World Pro Racing naħdem bħala replay person u nsuq mat-tim ukoll. Main task jien normalment nagħmel nieħosib li l-computers kollha din jaħdmu, nieħosib li l-komunità għandna platform online li kollox qed immur sew anke nikkomunikaw ma' drivers u wara l-events nikteb l-artikli nippubblikawhom fuq il-website. Jien as such bdejt bħal kull student naqa' technical know-hows, imbagħad ovvjament through time bdejt nitgħallem kif ċertu pereżempju broadcasts, ċertu affarijiet, ċertu preparations li jsiru qabel dik regarding World Pro Racing u anke bħala sim racing. Bdejt jien bħala e-sport jiġifieri aktar fuq computer, bdejt bil-mod nibni bħala steerings u hekk tracks tibda tidra bil-mod kollox pass pass issa.
GT3.com.
Office without limits. Slash your telco costs. Boost agent productivity and customer service. Web conferencing for all. Never miss a call. .3CX, everywhere you go, on premise or in the cloud. 3cx.com.
aħna saħħalsulhom il-fuel. Ara ġej.
Wara ftit ġranet kellna rebbieħ ieħor fil-logħba tagħna kontra 30 sekonda bil-maqlub.
Suqu fuq ir-riserva xejdu le mhix se tieqaf.
Il-ġimgħa d-dieħla nkunu fuq pompa tal-Enemed oħra nagħtu xi ħaġa oħra.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
Okay, we proceed to the start.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.